Hello everyone, my name's Robert Davidson. I'm the composer and actually the editor of the piece we're about to hear, Stalin's Piano. Fantastic to see you all here tonight. Thanks so much for coming along. It's actually a real dream come true to be here and back here in this beautiful venue. Isn't it an amazing venue? And thanks so much to the visionary Elaine Chia and her incredible team here at City Recital Hall. I'm really loving what they're bringing forth in this place. It's fantastic. Artists and politicians often seem to overlap. Artists may concern themselves with plans to change society, to influence the way that we live, to imagine new possibilities, or to voice resistance, like Billie Holiday singing Strange Fruit. And politicians may hone their parliamentary performances or see themselves as architects of public life. There are those who combine both roles. I'm thinking of people like the legendary pianist and composer Paderewski, who was also the Prime Minister of Poland, or our own rock star minister Peter Garrett, or the Hollywood actor who became President Reagan. One of my favourites is Maluma, a singer-songwriter who's an Arabic poet, a virtuoso traditional harpist, and she's also a senator battling for women's rights in Mauritania. Hitler and his frustration at not making it as an artist, and apparently as an opera designer as well, he wanted to be, didn't make it, and a lot of people have seen that as decisive in turning him towards politics. Artists are often very political, and politicians often concern themselves deeply with the arts or seek to foster or control them. Stalin's Piano is a collection, it's like a gallery really, of portraits of artists and politicians juxtaposed. Not portraits of faces, but portraits of voices, listened to very carefully and put into musical picture frames with the piano. Rather like a painted portrait involves close observation of somebody visually and then distillation of their character and personality. These are voice portraits, and there's 19 of them, and I'd just ask you to please hold your applause until the end. We all make music whenever we speak, and we all have our own individual musical style. This is something I find really fascinating and have for a very long time. For instance, did you realise that Gough Whitlam tended to speak in B-flat major? This is something I just love, and I'm rather obsessed by, I have to say. So this piece is my obsession coming forth to you. It's actually, Oliver Sacks wrote a great book called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, and he talked about aphasiacs and how they can hear emotions and lying and all sorts of things like that without actually being able to hear words. And I found that really fascinating. Maybe so I'm trying to turn you all into aphasiacs tonight. But it's a way to listen to what's behind the words, which I find so fascinating. Because I think when you listen to the music that we all make behind the words, you can actually get closer to somebody's emotions and to the deeper unspoken meanings. So what these portraits are, well, it's like trying to find this individual musical style of each speaker and trying to distill it in some way and find music which can design music to enhance your perception of that. For instance, when we get to Jackson Pollock a bit later, you'll hear he often does these little sort of paired notes, doo-doom, 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 and I've sort of chained them all together into a musical style for that little piece. So it's like his little Jackson Pollock musical style. Or sometimes the music makes a bit of a commentary and enhances, like, sort of develops that character. Frank Lloyd Wright, for instance, with his massive structures of steel and concrete and his even more massive ideas for the world. And so a lot of the music is very big, sort of grand, steely structures of concrete. I hope that you might hear it that way. That's how I hear it. So the piece is always associated for me with driving around North Queensland on these tour buses with Sonya. We spent many hours with my ensemble Topology doing gigs up there, the place where they're now recovering from these terrible floods. But yeah, looking at all these cane fields, and we were talking about all of these connections. There's a big web of connections between all of these characters, and politicians and artists, and this overlapping function. So Sonya and I, it was very collaborative. But I also just want to say it's not really a narrative. It's not like a through line. You shouldn't be looking for a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's more like walking into a room in a gallery and you're seeing all of these portraits, maybe all by the same artist, and they've got connections. You can find links between them. I hope you do. I certainly hear links there. But you'd probably be disappointed if you're looking for a nice sort of arc. It's more non-linear than that. Well, I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for coming. And I'd like to thank Neil Simpson, our producer, the wonderful crew here today, and particularly I'd like to thank Sonya Lifschitz. So please join me in welcoming Sonya to the stage to perform Stalin's Piano.
you. So wonderful to see so many of you here on this Thursday evening. I just want to say how utterly honored I feel to be playing this glorious hall on this beautiful stage. Huge thank you to Elaine Chi and the entire team here at the Recital Hall for letting us share this very, very special project with the Sydney audiences. This project is very dear to my heart on many levels. Firstly, I get to collaborate with a living composer in creating a new work and bringing it into being. And also at the heart of this project is an extraordinary story about a Russian Soviet pianist, Maria Yudina, who for me has been a lifelong hero, role model, and inspiration, both as a musician and as a human being. So I hope you enjoy this roller coaster through history, and I'll see you in about an hour on the other end.
Mr. Brecht, is it true that you have written a number of very revolutionary poems, plays, and other writings?
I have written a number of poems, and songs, and plays in the fight against Hitler, and of course they can be considered therefore as revolutionary, because I, of course, was for the overthrow of that government.
But we're not interested in any works that he might have written going for the overthrow of Germany.
Yes,
or the government there.
Well, from an examination of the works which Mr. Brecht has written, particularly in collaboration with Mr. Hans Eisler, he seems to be a person of international importance to the communist revolutionary movement. I would like to ask Mr. Brecht whether or not he wrote a poem, a song rather, entitled Forward, We've Not Forgotten. Forward, we've not forgotten. Forward, we've not forgotten. Our union in hunger and pain, no matter what may threaten. Forward, not forgotten. We have a world to gain. We shall free the world of shadow. Every shop and every room, every road and every meadow, all the world will be our own. Did you write that, Mr. Brecht?
No, I wrote a German poem, but that is very different, you see, from this thing.
Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party of any country?
Mr. Chairman, I have heard my colleagues and they considered this question not as proper, but I am a guest in this country and do not want to enter in any legal arguments, so I will answer your question fully as well I can. I was not a member, or am not a member of any communist party.
Your answer is then that you have never been a member of the Communist Party.
That is correct.
I am a young man of 71 years old. I am a young man of 71 years old. Have built my first house at the age of 17 and a half. It was very soon, and have continued during more than 50 years, occupied with many adventures and difficulties and catastrophes, and from time to time success. I am a young man of 71 years old. I am a young man of 71 years old. My research is, like my feeling, directed towards what is the principal value in the life, the poetry. Poetry is in the heart of man. Poetry is in the heart of man. Poetry is in the heart of man and is the capacity to go into the richness of nature. I am a visual man, a man working with eyes and hands. I am a visual man, a man working with eyes and hands. I am a visual man, a man working with eyes and hands. I am a visual man, a man working with eyes and hands. My cities are green cities. My houses give sun, space and green. Sun, space and green. Sun, space and green. Sun, space and green. But to obtain such richness of life, sun, space and green, you must take 2,000 people together, build a big house with one entrance only for 2,000 people, so they will be quickly in their own home, where they will find silence and total solitude. Though they are 2,000 together, it is possible to have one vertical road that is for rapid lifts. And it is now this big task facing us, the occupation of the ground by human labor. The first industrial era began 100 years ago, and it was an age of chaos. The second industry era will be the era of harmony and is only just beginning. The whole world is ready. Open the eyes and the ears, and all things are now fluid.
I would like specifically to know what you need. I would like specifically to know what you need. How would you like to change the way that we live?
I would like to make it appropriate to the Declaration of Independence, to the center line of our freedom. I'd like to have a free architecture. I'd like to have architecture that belonged where you see it standing and was a grace to the landscape instead of a disgrace. And the letters we received from our class tell us how those buildings we built for them have changed the character of their whole life and our whole existence. It is different now than it was before. Well, I'd like to do that for the country.
When you come to New York, as you did today, and you see, did you come by air?
Yes, came by air.
And you see the skyline of New York, this does not excite you, this does not exalt you in any manner.
Quite so.
It does not.
It does not. Because it never was planned. It's all a race for rent. And it is a great monument, I think, to the power of money and greed. Trying to substitute money for ideas. I don't see an idea in the whole thing anywhere, do you? Where's the idea in it? What's the idea?
The idea is obviously, it would seem to me, that a lot of people want to live together, as you point out, to make their livings, to make money, to enjoy what this large city has to offer. And I guess from time immemorial, people have flocked, more or less, to one spot to exchange ideas as well as goods.
But, my dear Mark, there was a justification for that. When there was no other means of communication than by personal contact. That's when the plan for this city you're living in now originated. It originated back there in the Middle Ages, when the only way you could have a culture, the only way you could get social distinction or any education from it was by ganging up. I would like to make it appropriate. I would like to make it appropriate. I would like to make it appropriate for the Declaration of Independence. To the center line of our freedom, I'd like to have a free architecture. I would like to make it appropriate for the Declaration of Independence. To the center line of our freedom, I'd like to have a free architecture. I'd like to have architecture that belonged where you see it standing and was a grace to the landscape instead of a disgrace. I would like to make it appropriate for the Declaration of Independence. To the center line of our freedom, I'd like to have a free architecture. I'd like to have architecture that belonged where you see it standing and was a grace to the landscape instead of a disgrace. I'd like to have a free architecture. 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 I'd like to have a free architecture.
Cuba, the day it's going to be nuclear war. Sweet spring is your time, is my time, is our time. For springtime is love time, and viva sweet love. All the merry little birds are flying in the floating in the very spirit, singing in a winging in the blossom. Lovers go and lovers come, a-wandering, but any two are perfectly alone. There's nobody else alive. Such a sky and such a sun I never knew, and neither did you. And everybody never breathed quite so many kinds of yes. Not a tree can count his leaves, each herself by opening, but shining who by thousands mean only one amazing thing. Secretly adoring, shyly, tiny winging, darting, floating, merry in the blossoming, always joyful selves are singing. Sweet spring is your time, is my time, is our time. For springtime is love time, and viva sweet love.
Leopold Stokowski and his symphony orchestra gave us Percy Granger's Early One Morning, and now back to Percy Granger himself, our guest today on Favorites of the Famous. Mr. Granger, you've been called the one cheerful, sunny composer living. To what would you attribute the warmth and the naturalness of your music?
Well, I don't know that my music is consistently warm and natural, but I think the impression that it's cheerful?
Mm-hmm.
Comes from people not knowing most of my compositions, for I think I'm very morose musically.
You're supposed to be misinterpreting, like you said before.
Well, they know one piece out of 20, and that one piece happens to be lively, and they like that. They ignore the other 19, as they generally do with most music.
Well, you don't actually feel morose.
Yes, I do.
You do?
I enjoy it very much.
You enjoy feeling sad? Well, I think that's wonderful. I mean, if you enjoy being sad, you should be
Well, it isn't a question of whether I enjoy so much only, but I think music is the art of agony. 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 Music is after all derived from screaming. Sounds derived from laughing.
Derived from screaming, never.
Well, when you think most music originated in trying to placate hostile theaters.
Well, certainly.
Like the Chinese banging a gong in a storm. And screaming with fear and screaming in supplication are not so very far removed, and music is, of course, the child of all that. Music is, after all, derived from screaming. Music is, after all, derived from screaming. It's not derived from laughter. Music is, after all, derived from screaming. It's not derived from laughter. Music is, after all, derived from screaming. Music is the art of agony. Music is the art of agony. Music is, after all, derived from screaming. Music is, after all, derived from screaming. It's not derived from laughter. Music is, after all, derived from screaming. It's not derived from laughter. Music is, after all, derived from screaming. Music is, after all, derived from screaming. I think the best thing for a composer is to be badly treated in every way.
A composer to be badly treated was Dmitri Shostakovich. During Stalin's purges, when disobedience often meant death or the Gulag, government decree dictated what was good art, acceptable art. Stalin attended Shostakovich's opera Lady Macbeth of Demzheng's district on 26 January 1936 in Moscow. The next day, the state newspaper Pravda's editorial condemned Shostakovich's music as anti-Soviet ugliness. The ability of good music to enthrall the masses, it read, has been sacrificed on the altar of petit bourgeois formalism. This is playing at abstruseness, and such games can only finish badly. Shostakovich feared for his life. His opera was immediately withdrawn, and he never composed another. One of Shostakovich's staunchest defenders was his friend, the pianist Maria Yudina. Many of her own friends lost to the labor Gulag camps or worse. Yudina was defiant to the core, wearing her cross very visibly, championing the most adventurous blacklisted works, and reading banned poets like Boris Pasternak and Nikolai Zabolotsky in her concerts. But she was Stalin's favorite pianist. Stalin didn't let anyone to see him for days at a time. He listened to the radio a lot. Once he called the radio committee asking if they had a record of Mozart's piano concerto number 23, heard on the radio the day before, played by Yudina. He added, of course, they told him. Actually, there was no record. The concert had been live, but they were too afraid to say no to Stalin.
После взятия власти нашей партии в 1917 году и после того, как партия предприняла реальные меры по ликвидации капиталистического помещичьего гнета, представители братских партий, восхищаясь отвагой и успехами нашей партии, присвоили ей звание парной бригады мирового революционного и рабочего движения.
Stalin demanded that they send the record to his dacha. The committee panicked, but they had to do something. They called in Yudina and an orchestra and recorded that night. Everyone was shaking with fright, except for Yudina, naturally. Yudina later said that they had to send the conductor home. He was so scared he couldn't think. They called in another conductor who trembled and got everything mixed up, confusing the orchestra. Only the third conductor was in any shape to finish the recording. Anyway, the record was ready by morning. They made one single copy, this one, and sent it to Stalin. They say that this recording of Mozart was on the record player when the great leader was found dead in his dacha. It was the last thing he had listened to.
Избушка на курьих ножках, Баба-Яга. Всегда и во всех сказках Баба-Яга появляется как носительница зла. И если не всегда преследуемые ею люди или добрые духи погибают, то есть если им удается выйти из ее ужасающих цепких преследований, так или иначе Баба-Яга неуклонно все путает, всему мешает, всему вредит, и не приведи Господь повстречаться с ней. Избушка на курьих ножках, Баба-Яга. Всегда и во всех сказках Баба-Яга появляется как носительница зла. И если не всегда всегда преследуемые ею люди или добрые души погибают, то есть если удается выйти из ее ужасающих цепких преследований. Так или иначе, Баба-Яга неуклонно все путает, всему мешает, всему вредит, и не приведи Господь повстречаться с ним. Баба-Яга.
Благодарю вас, Иосиф Виссарионович, за вашу поддержку. Я буду молиться за вас день и ночь и просить Господа простить ваши огромные грехи перед народом и страной. Господь, милостив, Он простит вас. Деньги я дала в церковь, прихожанкой которой являюсь.
Smelling the sweet grass of distant hills, too steep to climb, too far to see, in this handful of water, scooped from the river down. Touching the sky, where like a single wing my hand dips through clouds, tasting the shadow of basket willows, the colour of ferns. A perch, spoon-coloured, climbs where the moon sank, trailing bubbles of white, and school kids on picnics swing from a rope, head over sunlit hills like angels. They plunge into the sun at midday, into silence of pine woods hanging over a sunken hill farm. Taking all this in at the lips, holding it in the cup of my hand. And further down the hiss of volcanoes, rockfall and hot metals cooling in blue-black depths 100 centuries back. Taking all this in as the water takes it. Sky, sunlight, sweet grass flavors, and the long-held breath of children. A landscape mirrored, held a moment, and let go.
Die Masse ist an sich Rohstoff. Sie zu gestalten und aus ihr jene Kräfte herauszuholen, die Systeme stürzen und neue Welten aufbauen, wird die erste und vornehmste Aufgabe jeder Staatsmenschenbegabung sein. Auch der wahre Politiker ist im letzten Sinne des Wortes ein Künstler. Auch der wahre Politiker ist im letzten Sinne des Wortes ein Künstler. So wie der Bildhauer den rohen Marmor abzirkelt, behaut und meißelt, so formt der Staatsmann aus dem rohen Stoff Masse ein Volk, gibt ihm ein inneres Gerippe und ein haltendes Gefüge und bläst ihm dann jenen schöpferischen Odem ein, der das Volk zur Kulturnation emporwachsen lässt. Auch der wahre Politiker ist im letzten Sinne des Wortes ein Künstler. Auch der wahre Politiker ist im letzten Sinne des Wortes ein Künstler. Auch der wahre Politiker ist im letzten Sinne des Wortes ein Künstler. Sozialisten sind keine Handwerker der Politik. Wir sehen in Tagesfragen und Tagesnöten zwar einen Teil der uns obliegenden Sorgen, aber darüber steht doch ein Wille und darunter liegt eine Idee, die Tagesfragen und Tagesnöten erst den echten Sinn und auch die einzige Lösungsmöglichkeit geben.
Deutsche Hörer, dem, der heute wieder zu euch spricht, war es vergönnt, im Lauf seines nun schon langen Lebens für das geistige Ansehen Deutschlands einiges zu tun. Ich bin dankbar dafür, aber ich habe kein Recht, mich dessen zu rühmen, denn es war Fügung und lag nicht in meiner Absicht. Kein Künstler tut sein Werk, um den Ruhm seines Landes und Volkes zu mehren. Die Quelle der Produktivität ist das individuelle Gewissen. Ihr Deutsche dürftet mir heute mein Werk nicht danken, auch wenn ihr wolltet, sei es darum. Es wurde nicht um euretwillen, sondern aus eigenster Not getan. Aber etwas ist, das wirklich um euretwillen, aus sozialem und nicht aus privatem Gewissen geschah. Und täglich werde ich gewisser, dass die Zeit kommen wird und schon näher kommt, wo ihr es mir danken und es mir höher anrechnen werdet als meine Geschichtenbücher. Das ist, dass ich euch warnte, als es noch nicht zu spät war, vor den verworfenen Mächten, in deren Joch ihr heute hilflos geschirrt seid und die euch durch 1000 Untaten in ein unvorstellbares Verderben führen. Ich kannte sie. Ich wusste, dass nichts als Katastrophen und Elend für Deutschland und für Europa aus ihrem unsäglich niederträchtigen Wesen erwachsen konnten, während die Mehrzahl von euch in heute gewiss schon für euch selbst unfassbarer Verblendung sie für die Bringer von Ordnung, Schönheit und nationaler Würde hielt. Katastrophen und Elend Katastrophen und Elend. Kann ein Volk, eine Jugend tiefer sinken? Kann ein Volk, eine Jugend tiefer sinken? Dann kann euch immer noch Rettung, kann euch Freiheit und Friede werden.
Wrong styles of work still exist to a serious extent in our literary and art circles, and there are still many defects among our comrades.
I think because freedom of expression has so much to do with art creativity or art activities, so we often have to we often being pushed to the position we have to respond to the situation, which is very political.
Idealism, dogmatism, empty illusions, empty talk, contempt for practice, and aloofness from the masses, all of which call for an effective and serious campaign of rectification.
And, every day, all our struggles somehow associated with this kind of effort. As artists, of course, we want to improve our situation, which means independent thinking and the freedom of expression and communication. So by doing that, we become very political.
Difficulties will arise for them, not only in the villages, but also here in Yan'an.
And the communist society, the most powerful thing for them is try to blocking people to share information and to communicate about their feelings.
So, I think that what happened to painting is that painting's a very ragged business. It's not, it has no neatness in it, and the meanings are very sort of arbitrary and always. Painting could be just about anything at all, whereas in a way you can't write about just about anything. What the words you say just have certain meanings, although they're certainly very fuzzy, and you can be tricked completely by what people say. But on the whole, words have precise meanings, whereas there's nothing in painting that is precise. It's just you get good and bad writing, but it's always precise. It's precisely bad and it's precisely good. Whereas in painting, it's just it's not the same at all. You get painting which either has meaning for a lot of people, known meaning for other people, awful for some, rotten for others. So you'll never get it right.
Well, Mr. Park, can you tell us how Mozart came into being?
It didn't jump out of the blue. It's a part of a long tradition, beginning back with Cézanne up through the Cubist, post-Cubist, to the painting being done today.
Well, it's definitely a product of evolution.
Yes. It didn't jump out of the blue. It's a part of a long tradition, beginning back with Cézanne up through the Cubist, post-Cubist, to the painting being done today.
Well, it's definitely a product of evolution.
Yes.
And we go back to this method question, which so many people think is important. Can you tell us how you developed your method of painting and why you paint as you do?
Well, method seems to me a natural growth out of a need. And from a need, the modern artist has found new ways of expressing the world about him. I happen to find ways that are different from the usual techniques of painting, which seems a little strange at the moment, but I don't think there's anything very different about it. Modern artist, it seems to me, is working and expressing an inner world. Modern artist, it seems to me, is working and expressing an inner world. In other words, expressing the energy, the emotion, and other inner forces.
Would it be possible to say that the classical artist expressed his world by representing the objects, whereas the modern artist expresses his world by representing the effect the objects have upon him?
Yes, the modern artist is working with space and didn't jump out in the blue. It didn't jump out in the blue. It didn't jump out in the blue. Out in the blue.
Blue poles. Blue poles. The purchase was confirmed in the Sun Herald and the Sunday Telegraph on the 23rd of September, 73. The next day, the Sun ran the story under the heading, 1.3 million for dribs and drabs. 1.3 million for dribs and drabs. 1.3 million for dribs and drabs. Barefoot drunks painted our 1 million masterpiece. People refer to blue poles, not disparagingly now, never. I'm not one to say I told you so, but
I am Robert Helpman, Artistic Director of the Australian Ballet. I am concerned with ballet and theatre in all its forms. Artistic Director of the Australian Ballet. I am concerned with ballet and theatre in all its forms. I am Robert Helpman, Artistic Director of the Australian Ballet. I am concerned with ballet and theatre in all its forms. I am concerned with ballet and theatre in all its forms. Even as a child, I was always dressing up. From the earliest time I can remember, because my mother used to recite Shakespeare to me when I was in my cot and I to go to bed, and she would read Romeo and Juliet, and then of course I wouldn't let her read Romeo and Juliet because I realized that Juliet was the best part, so I used to read Juliet to her. And my father was a little bemused by all this because he was a stock and station man, and it was a little surprising to him to see his son, his eldest, at that time his only son, parading around the house dressed in whatever came into my fancy. And he went on a business trip to Melbourne when I was 14, and when he came back he said, "You're always wanting to be a dancer, and there's a girl dancing in Melbourne, and she's got a company, and I've been to see her, and she's going to take you into the company." And next week I left for Melbourne with my mother, and the girl was Anna Pavlova. By the time it dawned on me to try and ask why and how he got into her dressing room and why she took me as a student, both my father and Pavlova had died. I am Robert Helpman, Artistic Director of the Australian Ballet. I am concerned with ballet and theatre in all its forms. I am concerned with ballet and theatre in all its forms. I'm always asked what was the most memorable thing, or the performance or production, and it's impossible really for me to say because so many things have been memorable to me. My first appearances with Markova, my first appearances with Fontaine, my first appearances with Vivian Lee, and the first time I played Hamlet, all of them. I have a mind that is, it's very difficult to explain that success means nothing to me, or failure. I think they're about equal. When I say it means nothing to me, it means everything to me, but when it's past, I have no sense of feeling I'm a success. I have never felt for 1 minute in my life I'm a success. I feel I've accomplished something, and that is done, and therefore there's something more to do, and the success or failure of what has passed, and I must go on to something else.
Mr.
Mr. Trump, one of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account...
Thank you.
For the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women? You are part of the war on women. 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 You are part of the war on women.
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. Total political correctness. Total political correctness. Total political correctness. And frankly, what I say, and oftentimes it's fun, it's kidding, we have a good time, what I say is what I say. And honestly, Megan, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that. I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that.
I just don't respect her as a journalist. So I have, she gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions. And, you can see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct.
I think that putting a wife to work is a very dangerous thing. I don't want to sound too much like a chauvinist, but when I come home and dinner's not ready, I go through the roof, okay?
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. She does have a very nice figure.
Grab him by the pussy. 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 Grab him by the pussy.
I just don't respect her. I just don't respect her. I just don't respect her. I just don't respect her.
I'll go backstage before a show, and I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. Right. I want to make sure that everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, and I rise to oppose the motion moved by the Leader of the Opposition. And in so doing, I say to the Leader of the Opposition, I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not. And the government will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. Not now, not ever. The Leader of the Opposition says that people who hold sexist views and who are misogynists are not appropriate for high office. Well, I hope the Leader of the Opposition has got a piece of paper and he is writing out his resignation. Because if he wants to know what misogyny looks like in modern Australia, he doesn't need a motion in the House of Representatives, he needs a mirror. That's what he needs. About sexism and misogyny by this man. Not now, not ever. Not now, not ever. Not now, not ever. Not now, not ever. When the Leader of the Opposition went outside in the front of Parliament and stood next to a sign that said, "Ditch the witch." I was offended when the Leader of the Opposition stood next to a sign that described me as a man's bitch. I was offended by those things. Misogyny, sexism, every day from this Leader of the Opposition. Every day, in every way, across the time the Leader of the Opposition has sat in that chair and I've sat in this chair, that is all we have heard from him. Now looking at his watch, because apparently a woman's spoken too long, I've had him yell at me to shut up in the past, but I will take the remaining seconds of my speaking time to say to the Leader of the Opposition, I think the best course for him is to reflect on the standards he's exhibited in public life. And the Leader of the Opposition should think seriously about the role of women in public life and in Australian society, because we are entitled to a better standard than this. Yeah.
It is wrong. Yeah.